Hi, I'm LJ.
And I'm Phil. Welcome back to Stories with LJ and Phil.
We're excited to be reviewing our first book this week. It is The Dream Traveler's Quest into the Book of Light by Ted Decker and Kara Decker, which Decker is actually Ted's daughter. So that's pretty neat that he has chosen to write with his children.
Yeah, and also this is the first book of four, and we'll probably cover each of the books over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, we're also setting up an author interview for you, which we're really excited about. So we'll see if we take a break in the middle to do an interview, but regardless, we're excited about what's coming up.
That's right. And so let's just get right into this book review now. And what did you think, LJ?
I thought it was a really good book, and I wish that something like this had been around when I was a kid. And which actually brings us to, what age range do you think this book is good for?
Yeah, we had discussed that, and we kind of thought 10 to 15 probably. There are some scary parts for, if there's a sensitive 10-year-old, they might not like that. But I think most kids would do good with it.
Yeah, and one of the major themes of the book is overcoming fear. So, you know what you can handle and what you can't. So, use your discretion. But in general, I would say 10 to 15 is a good age range.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And some 15-year-olds might be more advanced readers, and so maybe you go with some of his other young adult books are probably for a little bit older of an audience, and you can decide whether they're ready for the adult books as well.
Yeah. So what did you think of the book, Phil?
I really liked it. To me, I saw some comparisons to Chronicles of Narnia, although I feel like Ted Decker's more sci-fi versus fantasy.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But what reminds us of Narnia is the book starts off with the main character, whose name is Teo, and he's being bullied at school, and his dad gives him bad advice. The dad tells Teo to just be invisible. But, we believe that, children should learn to use their voices as early as possible. But, the way he wrote it, it seems like he was purposely making the dad give bad advice, It's not like Ted Decker is advocating trying to be invisible to stay out of trouble. So, wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, like you said, I think he did it on purpose, and he could have made it sound better if the dad said something like, just keep your head down and, do the right thing, stay around teachers, whatever. He could have said the same thing, but made it sound better if he wanted that to actually be his advice.
Right.
But the way that he wrote it, you can tell it's like, no, the dad doesn't quite get it.
Right. So, so that's the first thing we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and besides.
So then, what happens next is Teo does not succeed in being invisible, and so the bully is kind of chasing him around the school, and he ends up in the library. And you want to share what happens next?
Yeah, so without giving too much away, he ends up hiding in a room in the library, and I won't say how, but while he's in this room, he somehow ends up in another world, and that's our comparison to Narnia. It's not a wardrobe, I'll tell you that. It's a different way, but it makes sense. You'll probably figure it out if you think about the title, actually. But yeah, so he ends up in another world, and there are a couple of times throughout the book where he kind of goes back and forth between, the real our world and the world within the book.
Yeah. So it's very much similar to Narnia, but it's definitely Ted Decker's own spin on it, and there's the animal characters in the other world are they're either white bats or black bats, and the white bats are called Roush, and the black bats,
those are called Shataiki, and our pronunciations are our best guess. So if it's wrong, sorry, Ted. We did our best. But yeah, it's kind of like there's a lot of themes within the book, kind of playing on the light and the darkness, and this is an example of that. But yeah, that will come up multiple times.
Yeah, and yeah, he does really a good job of like showing you which characters are good and which ones are evil, based on color and other symbolism. So there's no confusion as to whether a character is good or bad.
Yeah. Despite that, though, there's some inner conflict within Teo as he's trying to navigate this other world and figuring out, what is true, what is real, and etc. And us as the reader, we kind of see it right away, and we're like, "Oh, come on, Teo, you got this." But he has to kind of work through it himself and figure out what is real and true.
But isn't that a good metaphor for life, though?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because it's hard to tell what is true and what is not in this world, and an outsider might be like, oh, that's such a easy decision on whether this is true or not. But when you're going through it on your own, it really can be complicated to make right decisions and decide to follow the truth.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with that. And yeah, it's similar to like stories in the Bible where you have like the angels and the demons, and us as the reader, we're like, well, obviously you're going to go with what the angels are saying, but we kind of have the reader's kind of view of, we see the whole thing and we're just like, oh, it's so obvious. But it's in real life, when we're kind of struggling and going through things, it's like it's not as obvious as all that. And
Right.
The story kind of gets into that, where he's not always going to see it so simply.
Right. So, yeah. Another thing that I liked about the book is just
well, while you're thinking about that,
thanks for the rescue there.
yes, I wanted to bring up how I saw, reading it, I obviously saw the connection right away to the Circle series, because I've read that.
Thank you.
And that was probably even what you were thinking about.
Yes, that's where I was trying to go with it.
Yeah. So the Circle, there's a lot of comparison here, which he obviously has in mind. And I haven't read a lot of Ted Decker's other books, but you've pretty much read almost all of them, Jane. So you mentioned another one to me that I hadn't read. I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, so the Dream Traveler's quest seems to be very similar to the 49th Mystic and Rise of the Mystics, which is one of his newer series. And I say that because they're both set in the same world. And, well, I should say they're both set in the same two worlds.
Mm-hmm. As is the Circle.
Right. And so there's some crossover as to some of the characters. So, especially if your child is on the older end of the age range, they could potentially go from the Dream Traveler's quest to the 49th Mystic. And they would have enough background of the other world to just dive right on into the older book. And one thing that we haven't really touched on yet is that about the quest. So Teo's quest is to find the 5 seals of truth. And so this first book was setting up the adventure, and he finds the first seal.
Yeah, and if you're confused like I was by that, you're like, wait, there's only 4 books, but there's 5 seals. Apparently he does 2 at once in one of the books. Apparently. So they all get covered. Don't worry. There's it's not one that's missing and it's like, oh, he just didn't find that one, or the book wasn't written yet. It's all there.
Yeah.
We promise.
So obviously we haven't read all of the books in the series. We're discovering them along with you guys. But that's kind of our assumption as to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the seals are truths about God that if you really are able to accept them and make them heart knowledge, can really change your life.
Right.
And that's what I love about Ted Decker's writing, is that he always has a major truth that can be learned through a story. And it seems pretty obvious that he really wants to see the world change, and that each of his books can help you change your own life, and then once you've changed your own life, you can change the world.
Yeah, there's definitely a message there in all of his books, and none of it's just like lighthearted entertainment. It's all got a purpose.
Yeah.
So we really like that. Sometimes you want just like mindless entertainment, but most of the time you're better off with something that makes you think more, and so that's why we like him.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to cover? I know we don't want to give away too much for you guys.
No, I think that's a pretty good summary of the book without giving too much away.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us this week, and next week we will be covering book 2 in the Dream Traveler's Quest.
All right, looking forward to it.
So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.